So what do you do when you finish early on a Friday? Get your brew on. So we've just picked up our ingredients from Storm. Let's get this home and get our brew on. Tasty hazy homebrew poured, boilers on, and we're just waiting to come up to strike temp. Right, so we're coming up to temp now. As you can see, we're just over 62 degrees, just about 63. We want to come all the way up to 70 here. Because we're using a cooler mash tun, we're going to lose some temp as we go. It's almost like a step mash. So we're going to get to 70, and we're going to dump the water in, and we're going to mix in our grains. We'll probably lose in a couple of degrees of temperature there. Then we'll throw our cooler in the sun, and we'll let it run for an hour. And then it'll act like a step mash. It'll come down through all the temps for us, and we should get really nice extraction and enzyme action. So that'll get all our sugars out the grains for us, and then we can carry on to the next step. Alright, so we're just about at strike temp. We'll turn this boiler off, we'll dump in the water, and then we'll mix in our grains. Water's in, let's mix in our grains. Mix, 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 mix. Want to make sure there's no dough balls. Nicely mixed through. Okay, lid on. Let's get this tun in the sun. Alright, tun's in the sun. Got some nice hot bricks on there. It can just bake away for an hour. Set our timer, and we'll be back once that's done. Okay, so our 60-minute mash is done. Now we're going to do some quick recirculation. Okay, so I'm going to do this a few more times, and then we'll drain it into our boiler, and then we'll start our sparge. Okay, so we've done our recirculations. Now it's time to get our nicely mashed water out, full of all the sugars from the grains, and then we'll start our sparge. We don't want to go too fast because that might affect our efficiency. So I'm just going to drain this out, and I'll make sure I get all that nice sugary goodness out, and then we'll start our sparge. So we've completed our initial mash. Now I'm going to go get my sparge water, and we'll do our sparge for 20 minutes. Sparge or mash out water is in. Now we'll let our tun bake in the sun again for another 20 minutes. While that's happening, I'll start getting the boiler going again so we can start bringing it up to boil temp. So mashing out or sparging is complete. Now we will do a couple of recirculations, and then we'll bring her up to boil. And I'll bring you back once we're bringing her up to boil. So mash out is complete. As you can see, we're about 90 degrees. Once we hit 100 degrees, then we can start our 60-minute boil and start our first minute boil additions for bittering. I'll come back once we hit that point. So we've hit 100 degrees. We'll now start our 60-minute boil. Time to add our 10 grams of Motueka and 16 grams of Idaho 7. We'll will start boil now, and I'll see you in an hour. So we've completed our 1 hour boil, 60-minute boil. It's time to turn off the boiler. And now we will wait for it to come down to about 72 odd degrees, and then we will do our 20-minute hop stand whirlpool. So we're at about 72 degrees, so I'm going to start my whirlpool hop stand now. So we're going to add 16 grams of Motueka, 16 grams of Centennial, and 16 grams of, not Cascade, Idaho 7. And we're going to start our 20-minute whirlpool now. This is for all our aroma, it's going to add all the flavour. And now we're going to stir and whirlpool and hold that temp for the next 20 minutes. So I will give you guys a yell when that's done. We've done our 20-minute hop stand, keeping the temperature between 72 and 70 degrees so we don't get too much bitterness, but we still extract all those lovely hoppy oils that will contribute to fruity flavors in the brew. It's now time to transfer to our initial fermenter. I've switched to Firmzilla fermenters, and they don't like anything above 50 degrees, and since we're at 70 degrees I'm going to drop it into this fermenter, and then we will cool the whole thing down to about 28 degrees, because that's the top of the optimum temperature for US-05 that we're using as our yeast. And then we can transfer over to our Firmzilla to go into our brew fridge. So let's start that now. And there we go, we're transferring. Once we're transferring, I will show you, or once we've done transferring, then I'll show you how I'm going about cooling my brew, or my wort, to get it to temp, to put it into the Firmzilla, and then into my brew fridge. So bear with me for that. By now some of you might be wondering what any of this has to do with fish keeping. This stage. Right now I'm doing a change on my Salvini and bristlenose grow-out tank, and this is draining straight into a tub around the outside of our fermenter, which is cooling the whole thing down. So I'm combining fish keeping with brewing beer. I used to use a lot more. I used to, in winter, I quite often run a water bath in a cupboard with an aquarium heater and air lines around it to keep the temperature like sous vide around the right temperature so it ferments. But in summer I've set up a fermentation fridge with a temp controller, which I'll show you later. So right now we're doing a change out on this grow out tank, and it's cooling around the fermenter, which I'll show you in a second. And this is how we maximize the use of our hobbies. So we do a water change here, which drains to a tub around our sealed fermenter, which then cools the whole lot down so we get down to our 28 degrees, so we can pitch our yeast and we can put the thing away so it ferments away nice and happily. So here, as you can see, here's our tub containing our sealed fermenter, and it is currently draining from the Salvini and Catfish grow-out tank, and I'll continue to do my usual Friday water changes while it cools down my wort. And then once we hit about 28 degrees, we can transfer to our Firmzilla, we can pitch our yeast, and we can put it into our thermostatically controlled fermentation fridge. So I'm just taking our initial gravity, and our original gravity looks about 1.047. And if everything brews out fine and we end up at 1.010, which is our planned final gravity, we should end up about 4.9% ABV. So we're right on target. Alright, so we've chilled our wort down to 28 odd degrees. We should lose another couple of degrees in transfer. For those who are worried about sterilization, I have a big old tub of sterilizer over here, which allows me to sterilize every step of the way. So we're all nice and clean and sterilized. Let's get this transfer underway. Make sure our tap stays where we want it to be. Let's see if we can do this one-handed. There we go. Oh, there's a little bit of water along the way, but there we go. Transfer is underway. Once I get this all done, I'll give you guys a shout once we're ready to pitch our yeast and throw in our day one hops. Alright, so here we are in front of the fermentation fridge. Let's pitch our yeast. Sapphire US05. Nicely on top. And then we're going to add our day one dry hops. 10 grams of Cascade, 10 grams of Motueka, and 10 grams of Idaho 7. Now, we can seal her up. If I don't drop everything. And we can pack her away in this nice little fermentation fridge I've set up. We've got her set at 20 degrees. She's a little bit high now because I got the door open, but she will keep her between 2 degrees of 20 degrees. And the ideal temp of Sapphire US05 is between 18 and 28. So that should be perfect. Then we'll dry hop again once primary fermentation is complete. And then we should be ready to cold crash and then bottle. And then we can test it after about a week. And then we can enter it in the March comp for Northern Brewers. Alright, cheers guys. Thanks for coming along on this brew fish room journey. And I'll catch you next time on the next episode of Hood's Fishies. Alright, catch you later.